Welcome to subscribe. Continually we updated.
You know that thing they say about Monday mornings, the coffee is bad, the traffic is worse, and the new boss is about to make your life a living hell? Well, that Monday, my coffee was actually pretty good, which is probably why it hurt so much. I got to the office at 7:30, same as I've done for 15 years. The building smells like sawdust and floor wax, a smell I've kinda grown to love. We're a mid-size building supply company, right outside of Indianapolis. Nothing fancy. But we've got some solid accounts. National Hardware, the big chain, has been ours for 12 years, and I'm the guy who brought them in and kept them happy. That's not bragging. That's just a fact. I'm Mike Kowalski. I'm 45. I don't have an MBA. I don't play golf. I drink coffee, I listen to people, and I fix my old Mustang in the garage on weekends. That's my whole playbook. Anyway, I walked in that morning, said hey to Lisa at the front desk. She's been here almost as long as I have and she's got this sixth sense about office drama. She gave me a look. You know the one, the kind that says brace yourself. What? I said. Derek's been here since 6:30, she whispered. He's got a whiteboard. A whiteboard. That's never good. Derek Vance is our new business unit manager. Showed up 3 weeks ago like he was sent down from corporate heaven. 32 years old, shiny shoes, an Apple Watch that buzzes every time he has a thought. He talks about synergy and optimizing touchpoints, and I swear, every time he opens his mouth, I feel like I'm in a terrible TED Talk nobody asked for. He'd been walking around the office, watching us like we were lab rats, and you just knew something was coming. So I grab my coffee, black, no sugar, in my old Colts mug I've had since the Manning days, and head to the stand-up area. Derek insists we do these Monday stand-ups now. No sitting. No leaning. Just standing there while he reads from his iPad like he's delivering the 10 Commandments. The whole team is there. Brad, the young sales guy, looking nervous. A couple of the account managers. Susan from HR, not to be confused with my client Susan, different universe. Lisa's hovering near the back. And Derek, front and center, next to his brand new whiteboard that has a chart on it. I see words like metrics, optimization, and something that looks like a stick figure being fired. Morning, team, Derek says, without looking up. Some new policies going into effect, per my discussion with the regional VP. We're going to elevate our professional standards starting today. He clicks his little remote and a slide appears. There's a bulleted list. The first bullet says, no personal beverages at stand-up meetings. I look down at my coffee. I've been drinking coffee at Monday stand-ups since there were Monday stand-ups. Since before there were Monday stand-ups, back when Monday stand-ups were just me and my old boss Tom talking about the Colts game and maybe glancing at some numbers. It never occurred to me that coffee was unprofessional. Effective immediately, Derek continues, any violation of workplace professional standards will result in a documented infraction and a progressive fine. Today, it's a warning. Next time, it's $100. He looks directly at me. I'm still holding my mug. Mike, that includes you. A couple of people shuffle their feet. Brad stares at the floor. Lisa's eyes go wide. I should have just put the mug down. I know that now. But 15 years is a long time to be treated like a grown-up, and I guess I forgot how to be a child. So I took a sip. That's right. I looked right at Derek Vance, and I took a sip of my coffee. It was good coffee. Not great, but solid. And I swallowed it. Derek's face didn't change, which was somehow worse. He just smiled this thin little smile and tapped something on his iPad. Mike Kowalski, that's a first offense. But since I know you're a senior team member and you should be setting an example, I'm doubling it. That'll be $200. The room went dead quiet. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Somebody's stomach made a noise. $200. For a sip of coffee. Okay. Derek, I said, trying to keep my voice level, I've been here 15 years. I've never had a write-up. I brought in more revenue than anyone on this floor. I think I can handle a cup of coffee. He didn't even blink. Mike, I appreciate your tenure, but tenure doesn't give you a pass on professionalism. This isn't about revenue. It's about culture. And our new culture doesn't include coffee at Standup. Then he turned to the whiteboard and added something with his marker. I couldn't see it from where I stood, but Lisa told me later what he wrote. It said, Mike K., $200. Productivity distraction. I felt something go tight in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just this cold, hollow feeling, like when you're working on an engine and you realize some crucial part is missing and you don't know where to get another one. The meeting went on. More slides. More talk about optimization and touchpoints and right-sizing our approach. I didn't hear any of it. I just stared at my mug, which was now sitting on the floor next to my foot because Derek had told me to put it down. On the floor. My Colts mug, from 2006, the Super Bowl year. On the floor. When the stand-up ended, I walked back to my desk in a kind of fog. Brad caught up to me. Mike, that was insane. You gonna talk to HR? I shrugged. HR was Susan from HR, a nice lady who mostly handled birthday cards and insurance forms. She wasn't gonna fight Derek on this. Derek was the new golden boy. The regional VP had brought him in to shake things up. We all knew what that meant. I sat down at my desk, which is covered in old photos and a little bobblehead of a mechanic holding a wrench. I looked at my computer. I had emails. I had a big order to confirm. And I had a call scheduled with Susan, the real Susan, Susan Oliver, the procurement director at National Hardware. We'd been planning to talk this afternoon about their next quarter supply needs. Nothing major. Just a check-in. The kind of call I'd been making with her for over a decade. But before I could even open my calendar, Derek appeared next to my desk. He had a folder. Mike, a quick word. Per our new optimization protocols, I'll be reviewing all major client relationships. I'll need your files on National Hardware by end of day. Notes, contact info, history. I want to understand the account before I take over the touchpoint communication. I stared at him. Take over? Touchpoint communication. You'll still be involved, of course. But calls with their procurement director? I'll be handling those going forward. It's part of our right-sizing strategy. Senior management should handle senior accounts. I could have laughed. Here's a guy who couldn't tell a nail from a screw, telling me he wanted to take over my relationship with Susan. Susan, who I've known since before her daughter learned to ride a bike. Susan, who once called me at 2 a.m. because a shipment got lost in a snowstorm and her job was on the line, and I personally drove down to the warehouse and found the damn thing. Susan, who still sends me a Christmas card every year with a picture of her dog. And Derek wanted to be the one to call her. Sure, Derek, I said. I'll get you those files. He looked almost disappointed, like he'd expected more of a fight. Then he nodded and walked off, his loafers making tidy little sounds on the carpet. For the rest of the morning, I didn't do much. I answered a few emails. I stared at my bobblehead. I thought about my Mustang, the 78, the one that keeps dying and coming back to life. I've been working on that car for 6 years. It's not about making it perfect. It's about the fact that I know every bolt, every wire, every sound it makes when it's unhappy. I can't teach someone that knowledge in a folder. And I can't transfer my relationship with Susan into a spreadsheet. The thing about Susan is, she doesn't like change. She doesn't trust easily. It took me 3 years just to get her to stop calling me Mr. Kowalski. She's old school, like me. She wants to do business with people she knows, people who've proven they'll show up when things go wrong. If Derek calls her with his synergy and his touchpoints, she's gonna hang up the phone so fast it'll make his Apple Watch explode. But that's not my problem, right? I'm just the guy who got fined for drinking coffee. Around lunchtime, Brad came by again. You okay, man? I'm fine, I said. And I was, in a weird way. Because I had a choice to make. I could fight this. I could go to HR, I could complain to the VP, I could make a big noise. Or I could let it play out. I could give Derek those files, let him make his call, and see what happens. Because here's the thing I knew, deep in my bones, like I know the sound of my Mustang's engine misfiring, Derek was about to drive a car he didn't know how to handle. And that car was gonna teach him a lesson no MBA ever could. I took out my phone and looked at my calendar. My call with Susan was still there, just a reminder. I didn't cancel it. I just left it. The rest of Monday crawled by. Derek spent the afternoon in his office, probably crafting the perfect email to Susan. I gave him the files, all neat and organized, with all the history and numbers he could want. I didn't leave anything out. I just didn't include the one thing that mattered, the fact that Susan Oliver is a real person with a real memory of who was there for her and who wasn't. At 5 o'clock, I packed up my stuff. My Colts mug was still on the floor. I picked it up, rinsed it out, and put it in my bag. As I was walking out, Lisa caught my arm. Mike, she whispered, what are you gonna do? I smiled. I'm gonna go home and work on my car. It's making a noise. She looked confused, but she nodded. That's the thing about Lisa. She knows when not to push. I went home to my little house on the edge of town. I changed into my garage clothes, old jeans, and a t-shirt with a grease stain shaped like Florida. I opened the garage door, lit a single light bulb, and stood in front of my Mustang. It's not a beautiful car. The paint is faded, the interior smells like oil and time, and the engine hasn't been right since the Carter administration. But I love it. It's honest. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. I popped the hood and just stood there for a while, listening to the cicadas and the distant sound of a neighbor's lawnmower. I thought about the $200. I thought about Derek's thin smile. And I thought about Susan's phone number, which I've known by heart for 12 years. Then I went inside, made a fresh pot of coffee, and sat down in my recliner. I didn't watch TV. I didn't listen to the radio. I just sat there, in the quiet, holding a warm mug, a different mug, just a plain white one, and I waited. Because Tuesday was coming. And I had a feeling Tuesday was going to be a very interesting day. Oh, one more thing. That evening, around 8 o'clock, I got a text. It was from Susan, the real Susan. It said, hey, saw your calendar invite still there for tomorrow. Everything okay? Still on for 2 p.m.? I typed back, might be a change of plans. The new manager might be calling you instead. Just go with it. Don't worry. 3 dots. Then, what's his name? Derek Vance. 3 dots again. Then, got it. Talk tomorrow. I put down the phone. The coffee had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. Some things you don't throw away just because they're not hot anymore. Tuesday morning came in low and gray, the kind of sky that can't decide if it wants to rain or just hang there like a wet blanket. I got to the office early, same as always. 15 years of opening that same glass door, and it still squeaked in the exact same spot, right about halfway open, like a little reminder that nothing much changes unless someone forces it. Except today, everything was about to change. The parking lot was half empty when I pulled in. I parked the old truck next to a brand new silver Audi, Derek's car, still with the temporary plates on it. You could almost smell the leather interior from 10 feet away. I walked past it without looking twice and went inside. The office had that Tuesday morning smell, burned coffee from the machine nobody cleaned, the faint chemical sweetness of cleaning spray Lisa used on the front desk, and somewhere underneath it all, the dusty paper smell of old filing cabinets. Familiar. Comfortable. But there was something else in the air too, something you couldn't name. Tension. Like before a thunderstorm, when the birds go quiet and your skin prickles for no reason. Brad was already at his cubicle. He sat there, staring at his computer screen, but I could tell he wasn't reading anything. His coffee cup sat untouched next to his keyboard. When I walked past, he looked up at me with those wide eyes, the kind a kid gets when he's seen his parents fighting and doesn't know whose side he's supposed to be on. "Morning, Brad," I said. "Hey, Mike." He swallowed. You okay?" "Never better." I smiled. And I meant it. There's something about knowing what's coming that makes you calm. It's the not knowing that tears you up. I walked to my cubicle. The coffee stain from yesterday was still on the floor, nobody had cleaned it. A small brown circle on the gray carpet, like a ring left by a glass. I stared at it for a second. Derek hadn't even let me wipe it up yesterday. He just pointed at it and said, "We'll have janitorial handle that. Get back to your numbers." I sat down, powered up my computer, and started going through my emails. Routine stuff. Order confirmations. A few pricing requests. Nothing from Susan. Not yet. Around 9 o'clock, I heard Derek's office door open. His footsteps came down the hallway, that sharp click-click-click of expensive dress shoes on cheap linoleum. He stopped at Lisa's desk. "Good morning, Lisa. Can you pull me the full client history for National Hardware? I need every interaction log, every purchase order, every email thread from the last 12 months. Lisa's voice was careful. "That's Mike's account." "Shouldn't I? I'm aware whose account it is. I'm optimizing our client management system. Just pull the files." A pause. Then, of course, Mr. Vance. Click click click. The footsteps came closer. I didn't turn around. "Mike." Derek's voice, right behind me. I swiveled my chair slowly. "Morning, Derek." He was holding a tablet, stylus in hand. His Apple Watch glinted under the fluorescent lights. "I've reviewed your client portfolio. National Hardware represents about 30% of your revenue, correct? Give or take. I'll be taking point on that relationship going forward. You mentioned yesterday that you have a call scheduled with their procurement director, Susan, was it? Send me her contact details and the agenda for that call." I leaned back in my chair. "Susan Carmichael. Been working with her 12 years. She's old school. Likes a personal touch." "I'm sure she does." Derek smiled that smile, the one that's not really a smile, just teeth arranged in a row. "But we're standardizing our approach. From now on, all senior-level client communication goes through me." "That's just good business." "All right." I shrugged. "You want her direct line? Email?" "Everything." I opened my contacts, copied Susan's information into an email, and hit send. "It's in your inbox. Phone, email, our scheduled call for 2 o'clock. The agenda's pretty loose, we usually just catch up, talk about upcoming orders, see if she needs anything." Derek tapped his tablet. "Loose agendas are exactly what we're moving away from. I'll send her a proper meeting brief. Structured. Professional. You do that." He stood there for a moment, like he was waiting for me to argue. I didn't. I just turned back to my screen and opened another email. A few seconds later, the footsteps went away, click click click, back toward his office. Brad wheeled his chair over to the edge of my cubicle. He whispered, "Dude. He's taking your biggest account. Are you seriously just gonna let him, Brad?" I didn't look up from my screen. "You ever try to force a bolt that doesn't want to go in? What? You can put all your weight behind the wrench. You can strip the threads. You can break the whole damn thing. Or you can step back, add a little lubricant, and let it find its own way." Brad blinked. "What the hell does that mean?" "It means," I said, "some things fix themselves if you just give them enough room." He didn't get it. That was fine. He would. Lunch came and went. The office was weirdly quiet. Usually around noon, there's a low hum of conversation, people talking about their weekends, complaining about the vending machine, making plans for happy hour. Today, it was just keyboards clicking and phones ringing in other departments. Everyone was keeping their heads down. Everyone was waiting. At 1:45, I saw Derek close his office door. Through the glass walls, I could see him pacing, holding a printed document, rehearsing something under his breath. He had changed his tie, a power thing, probably. The new one was red. Of course it was red. I checked my phone. One new message from Susan, sent at 1:30, call coming. Don't worry. I smiled and put the phone away. At 2 o'clock exactly, Derek picked up his office phone. I couldn't hear the conversation from my cubicle, but I could see him. He was standing behind his desk, shoulders back, the red tie bright as a stop sign. He was talking with his hands, that confident, chopping motion that MBA programs must teach in orientation week. He was using his professional voice. I'd heard it before, in meetings. It was the voice of someone who'd read too many leadership books and not enough novels. Every word came out like it had been chosen by committee. The call lasted about 4 minutes. When Derek put the phone down, his shoulders weren't back anymore. He sat in his chair, very still, staring at his computer screen. He wasn't typing. He wasn't moving. He just sat there, like a man who'd just walked into a glass door and was still trying to figure out what hit him. I went back to my work. A few more emails. A quote for a small contractor. Nothing that mattered. Around 2:30, my office phone rang. I picked it up. Mike Kowalski. Mike, it's me. Susan's voice, warm and familiar, like hearing your favorite song on the radio when you didn't even know you needed it. She sounded relaxed. Almost amused. Hey, Susan. How'd the call go with our new manager? She let out a short laugh. Oh, Mike. You weren't kidding. That man, is he for real? What did he do? He sent me an agenda. An agenda. For our weekly check-in. Bullet points and everything. Review current contract performance metrics. Discuss optimization of supply chain touch points. Mike, I've been doing business with your company for 12 years. I've never once heard the phrase supply chain touch points in a conversation with you. What did you tell him? I told him the truth. I said, look, Derek, is it Derek? I don't know you. I've never met you for coffee. I've never watched your daughter learn to ride a bike. I've never been stuck on a highway with you at 2 in the morning waiting for a tow truck. I do business with people I know. And I don't know you. I was quiet for a moment. And then? And then he said something about organizational restructuring and new points of contact, and I told him if the new point of contact isn't you, then National Hardware will need to reevaluate our entire vendor relationship. He said he'd get back to me. I don't think he will. Susan. I didn't ask you to, I know you didn't. That's the point. You've never asked me for anything except honest business. That's why I trust you. I don't trust someone who sends me a bullet point agenda for a phone call I've been making every Tuesday for 12 years. We talked a few more minutes. About her daughter's softball game, about the new supplier she was thinking of dropping, about nothing in particular. Then we hung up, and I sat there, looking at the coffee stain on my carpet. The afternoon crawled by. Around 3:30, Lisa came by my desk. Her face was pale. Mike, there's something weird going on. I just saw Mr. Vance print out your entire personnel file. And HR's been in his office for 20 minutes with the door closed. Thanks, Lisa. What's happening? I looked at her. I'm not sure yet. But I think maybe Derek's having a rough Tuesday. She opened her mouth to say something else, but right then, the office went silent. Not just quiet, dead silent. No keyboards. No phones. Nothing. I looked up. Derek was standing in the doorway of his office, and his face was absolutely white, whiter than the cheap ceiling tiles, whiter than the paper in his hand. He was holding a printed email, and his fingers were trembling. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, scanning the room until his eyes found me. And for one long moment, he just stared at me, not with anger, not with authority, but with something that looked an awful lot like fear. Then his phone rang. He flinched like the sound had bitten him, turned around, and shut his office door. Brad rolled over to my cubicle again. What the hell was that? I leaned back, picked up my coffee mug, empty now, but I held it anyway. You know what I think, Brad? I think someone just sent an email that's gonna change things around here. What kind of email? I didn't answer. Because right at that moment, my computer pinged with a new message. The subject line read, National Hardware, Vendor Relationship Status. It was addressed to the entire office. I didn't open it. I already knew what it said. I pushed back from my desk, walked over to the break room, and poured myself a fresh cup of coffee. The machine made that grinding noise again, but today it sounded almost musical. While I was standing there, letting the steam rise into my face, my phone buzzed. Susan again, done. One word. That was all. I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter. It was perfect. And out in the main office, the first sounds of panic began to rise, chairs scraping, voices low at first, then louder, then overlapping, like a choir learning a song they never wanted to sing. The coffee went cold in my hand. Not because the office got chilly, it was the sound. Or the lack of it. You ever notice how an office has a heartbeat? The hum of copiers, the click of keyboards, the low murmur of people doing deals on the phone. That Wednesday morning, the heartbeat stopped. I stood in the break room doorway, watching. Brad sat at his desk, staring at his screen with his mouth half open, like a man watching a car crash in slow motion. Lisa wasn't answering the phone, and the phone was ringing, 3 lines blinking at once. Nobody moved to pick them up. The email. Susan's email. I still hadn't read it, but you don't need to read the words when you can read the room. Brad looked up at me. His face had gone a shade of gray I'd only seen once before, back when we almost lost the Henderson account during the recession. Mike, he said, and his voice cracked, you need to read this. Already know what it says, I told him. No, he said. No, you don't. He turned his monitor around. I walked over, set my coffee on his desk, and read. The subject line was the same, National Hardware, Vendor Relationship Status. But it wasn't just a breakup letter. Susan had written something that landed like a grenade in the middle of our carpeted, fluorescent-lit little world. After 12 years of partnership with Kowalski Building Supplies, I am writing to inform you that National Hardware will be conducting an immediate review of our supplier agreements. This review is prompted by a disturbing phone interaction with your new business manager, Derek Vance, who contacted me yesterday without prior introduction or context. Mr. Vance presented me with what he called a structured agenda and informed me that he would be handling my account moving forward. When I asked about Mike Kowalski, he described Mike as transitioning to reduced responsibilities. I have not spoken with Mike about this. I have not authorized this change. And I will not accept it. I kept reading. My relationship with your company has always been built on personal trust. 12 years. That trust does not transfer like a gym membership. Mr. Vance's approach, cold, scripted, and frankly insulting, has convinced me that your organization no longer values the human element of business. Therefore, effective immediately, National Hardware is suspending all open purchase orders totaling approximately $4.2 million, and we will be opening our supplier bidding process to competitors. I expect a personal call from your CEO explaining why I should not make this suspension permanent. She signed it, Susan Martinez, Director of Procurement. I read it twice. Then I set Brad's monitor back and picked up my coffee. It was cold. Didn't matter. Well, I said. She types a hell of an email. Brad stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Mike, that's 30% of our revenue. That's my commission check for the next 6 months. That's Lisa's job. I know what it is. Then how can you just stand there drinking coffee? The door to Derek's office flew open. He came out fast, too fast, his tie still knotted tight from yesterday, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. His face was the color of old milk. Behind him, I could see his computer screen. He'd read it too. Everyone, he said, and his voice had that MBA confidence still in it, but underneath you could hear the cracking. Everyone, stay calm. This is a misunderstanding. I'm going to call Susan right now and straighten this out. He looked at me. Right at me. And for the first time since he'd walked into our office 6 weeks ago with his shiny shoes and his PowerPoint presentations, I saw something in his eyes besides smugness. I saw fear. Real, cold pit in the stomach fear. Mike, he said. You're going to help me fix this. I took a sip of cold coffee. Am I? You have a relationship with her. You need to call her. Tell her this was all a mistake. Tell her you didn't mean what, exactly? I set my cup down. You didn't mean to take her away from me? You didn't mean to call my 15 years of work reduced responsibilities? You didn't mean to present her with an agenda like she was a prospect at a trade show? The office went dead quiet. Lisa stopped trying to answer the phones. Brad stopped breathing, I think. Even the copier picked that moment to shut up. Derek's face tightened. I was doing my job. Your job, I said, was to manage the team. Not to manage my clients. I told you that on day 1. Remember? You asked me about Susan, and I said, let me handle her. She's old school. She needs a personal touch. And you said, what did you say? He didn't answer. So I answered for him. You said, we're moving to a standardized approach. Standardized. Like she was a bolt you could swap out. I didn't know, that's right. You didn't know. You didn't know that Susan's daughter almost died of leukemia when she was 8, and I sat with her in the hospital parking lot for 2 hours because she couldn't stop crying. You didn't know that her husband walked out on her 3 years ago, and the first person she called for advice was me, not because I'm some genius, but because I listened. You didn't know that she hates people who call her without an introduction, who treat her like an account number instead of a human being. And you know why you didn't know any of that? I walked closer to him. Not threatening. Just close enough that he had to look me in the eye. Because you never asked. Not once. You saw me drinking coffee at a stand-up meeting and docked me $1,500, and you never asked why I drink coffee in the morning. You never asked why I make personal calls. You never asked about Susan, or the Henderson account, or the Wilson deal, or anything that actually makes this company run. You just showed up with your spreadsheets and your agendas and your data-driven decisions and decided everything was broken. The phone on Lisa's desk rang again. Nobody moved. So no, I said. I'm not going to call Susan and fix this for you. Because it's not broken. This is your process working exactly the way it's supposed to. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again, and this time his voice came out smaller. Softer. Like a kid who'd just realized he'd broken something expensive. You're going to let the company go under? Over a personal grudge? It's not a grudge, Derek. It's physics. You can't walk into a machine that's been running for 15 years, start yanking out bolts, and expect it to keep humming. And you definitely can't blame the machine when it stops. Lisa's phone rang again. This time, she picked it up. Kowalski Building Supplies, she said. Pause. Yes, Mr. Phillips. I'll let him know. She hung up. That was the bank. They've seen the email. Derek's face went from milk to chalk. Brad stood up. I'm going to go update my resume, he said, and walked out to the parking lot. Lisa followed him with her eyes, then looked at me. Mike, is this really happening? I walked back to my desk, pulled open the bottom drawer, and took out the box of stuff I'd been collecting for 15 years. The signed baseball Susan's son gave me when he made his Little League All-Star team. The photo of me and the Henderson brothers at the lake, holding up bass we'd caught on a sales retreat that was really just 3 days of fishing and talking about life. A coffee mug with a chip in the handle that my first client ever gave me, a guy named Frank who'd passed away 5 years ago. Yeah, I said. It's happening. And then the door to the CEO's office opened. Jim Henderson. He'd built this company with his brother back in the 80s, back when business was done on a handshake and a cup of coffee. He was 68 now, mostly retired, but he still came in twice a week to keep an eye on things. He'd been here the whole time. He'd heard everything. He walked past Derek without looking at him. Walked past the empty cubicles and the unringing phones. Walked right up to my desk and looked at the box I was packing. You're not quitting, he said. It wasn't a question. Didn't say I was. What are you doing? I closed the box. Going home for the day. Figured the office needed some quiet. Jim nodded slow. He picked up the baseball, turned it over in his hands. Susan's kid? Yep. He hit a home run at that game. Over the left field fence. Never saw a 12-year-old crush a ball like that. Jim set the ball down. Then he turned around and faced the office. What was left of it? Brad was gone. Lisa was packing her purse. Derek stood frozen by his office door, watching everything collapse around him. All right, Jim said. Here's what's going to happen. Derek, you're done. Pack your office. Lisa, get me Susan on the phone, I'll grovel if I have to. Brad's probably in the parking lot, go get him. Tell him he's not updating his resume today. He looked at me. Mike, I need you to go home, put that box back in your garage, and come back tomorrow morning. You're taking over Derek's job. We're calling it Director of Client Relationships or some other fancy title. You'll get a raise. You'll get an office. And you'll never have to stand up at Monday stand-up again. Derek made a sound like a balloon deflating. Jim, I can explain. No, Jim said. You can't. I hired you because the board said we needed fresh thinking. What I forgot is that fresh thinking doesn't mean throwing out 15 years of trust. Mike built this company's reputation one cup of coffee at a time. You tried to tear it down in one phone call. He pointed toward Derek's office. Get your things. Derek didn't move. His face was a mess, anger, shame, disbelief, all fighting for space. This is unfair. I was following protocol. You were proving you don't understand the first thing about this business, Jim said. Now get out of my building. He went. Slow, like a man walking through water. Stopped at his office door, looked back at me one last time. I thought he might say something. Apologize, maybe. But he didn't. He just shook his head and disappeared inside. Lisa came back with Brad. They stood in the doorway, watching Derek pack his framed MBA diploma into a cardboard box. Nobody said anything. There wasn't anything to say. I picked up my coffee cup. Cold as a stone by now. I walked over to the break room, poured it out, and started a fresh pot. The machine made its grinding noise, and this time it didn't sound broken at all. It sounded like an engine turning over on a cold morning. Brad appeared in the doorway. You really not going to call Susan? Show her there's no hard feelings? No hard feelings to show, I said. She did what she had to do. And Jim's doing what he has to do. And tomorrow, I'll come back and do what I've always done. Which is? The coffee finished brewing. I poured myself a fresh cup. Steam rose up into my face. Drink coffee, I said. And make some phone calls. The end.